was a reshuffling over the weekend by Mr. President from different ministries. Of course, we've seen Abubakar Momo move from youth, the Ministry of Youth, of course, to the Ministry of Niger Delta. A Niger Delta ministry definitely has now been created because a lot of agitations were on last week as to, okay, did the president miss creating or having a minister of youth, also as well as Abubakar Momo. Okay, when he was chosen as the Minister of Youth, why would an over 60-year-old man be a minister of youth when you have a very young country, that the median age of this country is 18 years? So why should you be having a 60-year-old, 60-plus-year-old man being a minister of youth? And at this time, perhaps the president still needs to make that appointment. Who knows? Because
well, right from the nomination of the ministerial nominees, we have continued to see changes. We saw changes after names were sent to the National Assembly, perhaps some political undertones, some horse trading, some negotiations, and perhaps some pressures on the president. We saw changes. Ministers were dropped. One was at the venue of the confirmation hearing at the National Assembly and had to come back. We have seen changes also in assignment of portfolio. We should not expect changes going forward because I think more pressures on the president. There are still some, perhaps, we don't know, some ministers to be appointed from Kaduna to replace Nasir Rufai and others. But all we have seen is an attempt by this government to settle in and control and consolidate on power.
A lot of people have also said that this is a little too late for Mr. President, because some people were expecting that this cabinet would have been formed for a while now, at least perhaps in the last 2-3 weeks or 1 month. Bearing in mind that Mr. President said he came in prepared, is a famous Emilokon word, so it's Nigerians assumed that he has everything, sorted out in terms of who are those men and women that will work with him. But of course, from today, we'll have a functional Federal Executive Council where policies will be churned out, where I don't know what to say. Is it contracts will be approved and awarded?
No, that's an aberration.
Yes,
the Federal Executive Council of the Federation is the highest policy-making body. But over time, they have usurped the powers of the National Council on Procurement, which the law in this stipulates should be the final authority for vetting and approval of contracts. We have seen successive governments violate this act, as it were, and have continued to use the Executive Council of the Federation as the contract approving body. When will it stop? We don't know, but we know that at some point it has to stop. We have to take away the contract awarding responsibility away from the politicians and leave it to the experts as captured under that law.
Will this president do that?
That's the big question.
Yeah, because a lot of things that many people said they expected this president to have changed, but is seemingly not changing. For example, when he swears in his ministers 45, and perhaps later when he gets, if he still wants 48, it will be the largest cabinet ever since 1999. So Mr. President is a bit different on that. If the Federal Executive Council will still go ahead with contract awards, he might not also do something. It is
unlikely. When you take away the power to award contract from politicians, from the political party, it's achievable, but we need to put enormous pressure on the government. We need to pressure them into doing that. We promise you have assembled a panel of experts. We also have live feed from the Asoro Presidential Villa, Abuja. We'll be showing you right away. The venue is already a big hub of activities. Ministers designate arriving. They completed their documentation on Sunday. That's some few hours ago, and they were asked to come with only 2 guests into the venue of the ceremony. But I can tell you, outside the Asoro Presidential Villa, Abuja, outside the gate, expect to see even dance troops, friends and relatives, sometimes coming with Ashebi and all that, trying to welcome their person who has been given a responsibility to serve at the federal level. We also have a correspondent on ground who will be joining any moment to fill us in with on the spot activities at the Asoro Presidential Villa, Abuja.
So it's a beehive of activities today in Abuja. You can expect like 45 venues, 45 Owambes, 45
after
parties
the swearing
after
in.
the
swearing in, they will go
yes.
for handover ceremony. From there, in the evening, any other thing can be added to it.
Some did not say evening, because I've seen a couple of invitations for this afternoon's party. Yes.
Okay, we have some guests, virtual, some on physical in the studio. Let's start from our virtual guest. Dr. Pedi Obani is Associate Professor, School of Law, Bradford University in the UK.
Thank you very much for having me.
And
good morning, everyone.
Good morning to you.
And we have Tokunbo Afikuyomi Jr. He's also online there. He's the senior economist, STARS Insights. He's joining us from London. Welcome to you, Tokunbo, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
I'm back in the virtual audience. The last, not the least, is Professor Dong Pam Shah, Director of Research, National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, Kuru, in Jos. Thank you so much, Prof, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
We hope some of these ministers may have passed through the NIPS Institute in Kuru as part of the capacity building measure.
We hope so. But of course, not all of them have passed through.
Definitely not all of them. And in the studio for now is Eniola Ko, Executive Director, Next Action, talking about a young person being in the saddle.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
She's old enough to become the minister.
I know. I was just going to say that, but let's keep that on
the Yes, we're expecting more guests to join us physically for us to continue the conversation. But don't forget, like we said earlier, it's the swearing-in day for the ministers. Mr. Tinubu, Mr. President, now will have trusted allies, so to speak, and there will be like mini presidents in those ministries, because a minister's role is also like a president. You have the president's eye in that ministry to carry out his policies. So we expect that.
Yeah, absolutely. We expect a former minister, Professor Onyebuchi Chukwu. He was a minister during the Jonathan administration, Minister of Health, has a wealth of experience in implementing executive operations, and he will join us any moment from now. But let's get the ball rolling. Let's begin to get the expectations of our panelists on the huge tax before this Executive Council of the Federation, the Federal Cabinet. Let's start from Dr. Pedi Obani. Dr. Obani, what are your expectations as this cabinet gets into office, becomes sworn in today? What do you expect them to achieve in the long term, medium term, and immediate term?
Thank you very much for the question. I think for me, one of the main things I would expect them to achieve in the immediate term would be to get up to speed with the plans that are already in place, the laws that are already in place, and the policies that are already in place. Of course, I have a bias because my background is in law. So I would always speak from that perspective. But one of the things we find is that sometimes ministries seem to be working at odds with each other. And sometimes when we see...
Go ahead, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So I was just saying, sometimes the ministries seem to be working at odds with each other, and sometimes the policies do not seem to synchronize. And at the end of the day, it is one government. It is one agenda that is being driven. So I think it will be really critical that the ministers come together, irrespective of whatever portfolios they may be handling, to say, how do we work such that our mandates synchronize, our mandates reinforce each other, and we are not going in different directions. That would be really critical. I think I'll leave that. I have a lot more to say, but I'll leave it there for now in terms of the immediate. Now, in terms of the medium and long-term plans, of course, it would be that they really work together and ensure that there is information, there's data, because when we go into the details, I think one of the things we'll find is that data is sometimes lacking. So it will be critical that they explore what is the state of affairs at the moment? Where are the gaps? And it's not reinventing the wheel. The information is already out there. There's lots of research that has been carried out. There's lots of opinion pieces that have been written. And indeed, these ministers come from the society, so they see the problems as they are. So I think it'll be important that they identify those gaps and start working towards filling those gaps, wherever they may exist. Thank you.
Let me come over to Professor Pamshea. As Director of Research at NIPS, Kuru, of course, we know what NIPS has been doing, at least in the past few years. How much of capacity building do you think that these ministers need at this time? I don't know. I've not heard anything about retreats. I don't know if they're going to have a retreat after the swearing in, if it's not even a little too late for that. But what kind of capacities should these ministers bring to bear, especially now that we even have creation of new ministries, such as the Blue Economy Ministry, some other ministries. Of course, petroleum has been divided into two, petroleum as well as gas. Resources, some ministries have also been broken down. There's a creative economy side added to arts. So what kind of capacity building should we be expecting from those ministers, and what can institutes like yours do to support this cabinet?
Thank you very much for the question. There's a noise.
Understand the noise is filtering in. Our engineers will get rid of it to ensure that you get not distracted as you answer our question. But perhaps as they do that, let's quickly come back here to the studio. Eniolako is very much with us. Let's get your own expectations, huge one, considering the current state of the nation.
To be honest, you just hit the nail right on the head. Nigerians are not happy. That is the truth, if we're going to say, categorically. And the ministers that we have being sworn in today need to know that this is not a party period. They should get in there and they should get the ball rolling with immediate actions. Now, for example, Minister for Health and Social Welfare. I'm personally happy to see that there was that creation of a welfare system or thoughts in the creation of that ministry. We need to see things like having social security and some sort of insurance given to Nigerians. As the fuel subsidy was taken out, Nigerians have been complaining bitterly. A lot of roadblocks and traffic situations that we used to have in Lagos and even here in Abuja, we don't see anymore because people are basically doing a lot of things virtually and trying not to move around too much. The economy and the hardship is hitting on the masses more than it's seen in our government. And then we had news reports recently of senators distributing allowances to their own pockets. Nigerians are not happy about these things. So we need to see the government and the ministers that are being sworn in today come up with policies and setting an ideology, a national identity and ideology for Nigerians, coming up with platforms where Nigerians and the general public can feel a sense of belonging and communication with them. For example, Dr. Betty Edu, who has been appointed the Minister for Humanitarian and Poverty Alleviation. We are aware that the President has designated a special fund for relief in these times. We need to see a specific structure being set by that ministry on how those funds can be disbursed to the masses who are really suffering right now. So we need to see them hit the ground running and set the ball rolling to ensure that Nigerians know that this large cabinet that has been built by the president is not just to amass more wealth to the elites, but actually to get the poor Nigerians, the common masses, to actually go from that level of a low standard of living to a more appropriate standard of living where at least their basic needs are met.
Okay, let's come back to Professor Pamshea. Prof, I hope you heard my question earlier. If you did, please can you respond to that?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm from the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, Kuru, and the Director of Research. I think what we expect probably after the inauguration today is a presidential retreat, where the president is going to share his vision and mission, for the country, and also for the cabinet. And I think this is very crucial because amongst those who have been appointed are those who have worked probably in the private sector. Some have worked in the public sector. Some have never worked in, anywhere close to either private or public sector. And we think that having a retreat of this nature would be very helpful, to bring everybody on board and also online with what the president has in mind. We are quite happy that at least some discussion, has gone around sharing his vision and mission with the cabinet, and this is very crucial, for a nation like ours that is facing crucial challenges. We need, to bring everybody on board. There are those who would be managing the ministries that they have never had any link with in the past. And therefore, such a retreat, will help them to understand the workings of those ministries and also how to relate, with the permanent secretaries, for instance, and also how to work with junior colleagues in such ministries. But more importantly, there are policy issues that Mr. President will have to share. For instance, in the old ministries that we already know, and the new ones that he has created, there must be a harmony of understanding of what these ministries are expected to do. So such a retreat, would be very crucial. We're hoping that the National Institute will be able to host this or to provide a lead on this, because our mandate falls squarely in the training of public and private officials, including civil society organizations. And those who he has brought on board, to help him move the country forward, are those categories that we have been training here for the past 45 years. So yes, the National Institute would be in a better position to lead this retreat. And we hope that my Director General is currently in Abuja, and I'm sure he's working on this. So yes, the Institute is ready to host this, and we wish Mr. President well as he shares his vision and mission to move this country forward.
Okay, thank you, Prof. We'll come back to you. Let's bring in Tokumba Fikuyomi, a junior senior economist, Steers Insights. Economy has been a priority for the Tinubu administration, going by the flurry of policy initiatives that we have seen, although we're also witnessing the negative impact. Now, taking a look at the economic managers of this administration, we have a coordinating minister of the economy returning, Ricardo Okonjo Iweala-Rowe. Of course, it's going to be a huge challenge with finance, with budgeting, with overall economic development. Your perspectives?
Yes, no, thank you. Like you mentioned, it is going to be a challenge. And despite the jubilations that are being planned, I would not... this is the kind of job that not everybody would necessarily want to do because of the difficulty. I think, like you said, there has been immediate focus on the economy with at least the two main policies that the Tinubu administration has kicked off with, which is getting rid of the subsidy and the FX reforms. Now, I think what is crucial for the ministry and for the government as a whole is to ensure that our transition towards these new policies or the objectives of the policies is not detrimental to the economy. It is possible to go for point B to be better than point A, but the movement from point A to point B is so painful that you are worse off, right? So it's important to make sure that as they carry out with these reforms, that, like my colleagues have mentioned, that there's proper coordination between ministries to ensure that, especially the poor and the vulnerable are taken care of in these difficult times. But the thing with Nigeria's problems is that it is both sometimes it seems both obvious, but can be also very complicated at the same time. You know, everybody has been talking about how getting rid of this subsidy is an obvious move to make, and indeed it is. But actually dealing with the removal of subsidies is a difficult and complicated thing to do. Do you take it out immediately? Do you do it in stages? How do you get cash to the poor? You know, we saw a lot of news about how the current administration did not trust the database of the poor and vulnerable that was done by the previous administration. You know, that means that it's going to be very difficult to get palliatives to the poor. You know, 40% of adult Nigerians are still don't have bank accounts. So, you know, getting cash and getting money to the vulnerable is going to be one of the biggest things that, you know, the ministry, all the government ministries have to think about helping the finance ministry, you know, solve. The finance ministry cannot do that problem or deal with that problem by itself. So, like my colleagues have said, there has to be very strong coordination between the different ministries. And, you know, one thing that has to exist is an overall agenda, an overall objective for how this country moves to the next stage of development. You know, if we don't have that overall vision, the different, you know, economic related ministries are going to struggle. And I think that is why I'm especially happy that we have a return to having a, you know, economic coordinating minister as well. So we can get back to a world where there is at least a brain for economic policies going forward, and it should be less scattered as it was in the previous past.
Okay. Let's quickly move over to the Villa now. Our colleague Yemi Adebayo is there right now. Also, before we join, let's also say that Professor Onyebuchi, former Minister of Health, has joined us. Prof, welcome. We'll come back to you in a bit. Yemi Adebayo is joining us from the Villa now. Hello, Yemi. Can you hear us from the studio? Good morning to you. Okay, seems...
Is Yemi still there?
Yes, I can't get the signal of Yemi. Please do let us know when Yemi is available to speak with us at this point.
Okay, Yemi is there finally. Yemi, thank you so much for joining us. Quickly bring us up to speed with developments at the Asoro Presidential Villa, Abuja. From the official timing, the swearing-in is to commence by 10 a.m. Are we keeping to time? And what's the atmosphere like?
Well, Amechi, thank you very much. Well, the atmosphere, as you can see right behind me, it's a very busy day here at the Presidential Villa. And any moment from now, the President Bola Tinubu, is expected to arrive at the State House Conference Center here, where the event will take place properly. Well, I can confirm to you that 45 of the ministers designate are already in this hall with their family members, you know, to take the oath of office. And from there, they get the action plan and the marching orders from the President on what he expects from each of the ministers and the various ministries. Amechi, just right about now, the Speaker of the House of Representatives is just coming in right now in front of me. He's just walking into the hall. And aside from this, Amechi, there's a lot of on these ministers for them to deliver, considering the action plan the President will be relaying out to them, because 45 of them scaled through the screening and confirmation of the Senate. So we are expecting today that the President will rely out some of his policies to them. And as well, the Senate President, Mr. Godswill Akpabio, has just arrived here. He's walking right behind me. That's the Senate President walking right behind me into the hall, which signals that any moment from now, the President will also walk into this hall and the event will start proper. Amechi.
Okay. Yemi, so of course I can actually even see and feel the environment behind you. Can you give me a sense of the sentiments there? The ministers you've seen, I don't know if you've spoken to any one of them. Are they excited about the job? Are they ready to go? Or are they ready to hit the ground running like the President has said that, guys, we campaigned for this job, so we've really got to do it. So what sense is on there? Or is it a sense of partying after this swearing in? Because I've seen a couple of invitations too for the Owambes after the swearing in. So what exactly is the sense there?
Well, Nancy, it's a mixed reaction, really. For some of them who have had the vast experience of being on the job before, and for some of them who has held offices in the past, you know, it's perhaps would be a smooth sail for them. But there are also some of them who are coming new into this position, Clearly, like you said, some of them are rolled out invitation cards. Perhaps after the swearing in here, they will be having party at their various ministry or houses. But one clear thing is that after this swearing in, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. George Akume, is expected to meet all the ministers in his office as well as the permanent secretaries, to actually have a rapport with them on what the president expects from each one of them. There's a mandate plan they have to follow. So aside from this, Nancy, we are expecting that aside from when they leave this venue now, they get to their ministry to familiarize themselves with the various officials in their various ministry, shortly after which we are hoping that after today's swearing in, there will be a proper presidential retreat for all the ministers. Nancy.
Okay, Yemi, just before, I have one last question for you, because I've also heard, will the Federal Executive Council meeting hold, for example, on Wednesday? Because it's tradition that the Federal Executive Council will hold on Wednesday. Or are we expecting a change to the day? Because I've also heard from some people that perhaps Mr. President is changing from Wednesday to Monday and giving visiting days for people. I don't know if you've heard anything.
What we're expecting is that it's not so clear whether or not the Executive Council of the Federation meeting will hold this Wednesday. Don't forget that there's been the dark meeting where memos will be approved. There's been a number of memos that is expected to be approved at that particular council meeting. So we are hoping that after this Wednesday, perhaps next week Wednesday, there will be the inaugural Executive Council of the Federation meeting, which the president is expected to chair that particular meeting. So we are hoping that if perhaps by tomorrow, the ministers are expected to settle into their offices properly, and from where they will begin, action plans on what they want to do, on each and every one of them wants to do. Don't forget, there are 45 of them, and they have been assigned portfolios, and this, you clearly know as well that there's been a change in the nomenclature of some of the ministries that have been rolled out by the president. And just yesterday as well, you could see that there's also a change of guard in some of the portfolios that was earlier assigned to each of these ministers. So we're expecting something similar, but clearly we can't really confirm if the Executive Council of the Federation meeting will hold on Wednesday. Nancy.
We have to thank you so much, Yemi Adebayo, for joining us, and perhaps immediately after the swearing in, we hope to bring you again. If we can speak live to one of the ministers, it will add value to what we were doing here. But of course, Wednesdays has been the pattern since 1999 for Federal Executive Council meeting. Many of them are politicians. Monday, Nancy, may be very challenging. They go to their constituencies and others. Some of them travel over the weekend. But let's see. Perhaps they have some reasons for proposing it.
Isn't it also an excuse? Because some people are saying it's also good to have a Federal Executive Council on Monday. Sets the ball rolling. Unlike, when you have it on Monday, there's a role plan of how the president is thinking, and the ministers then, whatever you want to do. Because even on Wednesdays, midweek, trust our civil service, they're already in a weekend mode, as it were. So productivity is really what I'm talking about. And what's
a good point there. Perhaps if they shift it, they will further give the rationale behind that. But I can tell you, it will be a big challenge for the politicians among them to meet up with the time. But
what if they surprise us? What if they surprise us?
It will be a pleasant surprise.
Okay.
It will be a pleasant surprise.
Okay.
Let's welcome Professor Onyebuchi Chukwu, who has been there as a member of the cabinet. Thank you so much, Prof, for joining us. Now, it's important. Prof. I can imagine when it was your turn this day, several years back.
How did you feel that day?
The expectations and the excitement, the party that will come later, and not taking your eyes off the task ahead.
Well, for me, I was sworn in twice. I was first appointed in 2010 and then reappointed in 2011. So I've been there 2 times. The first time is the one I remember clearly because that was the first time I was going to be minister. The excitement around me from family and friends, and then my own anxiety as to how I was going to face the office, whether I was going to meet the expectations of my principal, and of course the expectations of Nigeria was there. So it was quite a solemn day for me. The second one was less solemn because, I've been there before. I already had ideas what I was going to do, but all the same, I was also happy.
Okay, Prof, can you give us a sense of what might be happening within that State House right now? You know, what we're expecting, what was the tradition at that time? Is it when they finish, when the swearing in has been concluded, did you go to your ministry? What I would just give us a sense.
Well,
you had a brief,
there's a little change
brief
this year.
Federal Executive Council of the Federation meeting immediately after the swearing in.
No, there was no such meeting because the president is quite busy. The other activities he's going to be involved in today. So today is for the ministers to go know their offices, get acquainted with the top civil servants led by the permanent secretary, and then actually tomorrow will be their very first full day in office. There's a little change this year in that the president had already announced the portfolio before the inauguration. In our own case, we didn't even know where we were going. We had, some intelligent guesses, but it was only after we were sworn in and the president then spoke to us that we knew for sure the ministries we were going to. So I can imagine that now that they know their portfolio, after the swearing in, they'll probably go collect their letters of appointment from the office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. They'll be taken to their ministries by the permanent secretaries who are already there to welcome them. They will go address senior civil servants in their ministry. And then, like I heard people say, there are a lot of reception for them. So most likely, after that initial acquaintance, they will go for their various reception parties. So the real work will probably start tomorrow.
Prof, just to add that I was there on those two occasions you were sworn in as a State House correspondent, and I witnessed so many others. But in terms of the work, in terms of members of this cabinet sharing the same philosophy with the president, how important is that? If, of course, there are political undertones to this appointment, but after the appointment, fusing, integrating their interests, vision, and philosophy with that of this administration will be very essential.
You're correct. We are running a presidential system of government. And so every minister is there to assist the president deliver on his mandate. And so they're expected to run with the policies and ideas of the president, but they're also expected to contribute their own ideas to help the president because it's not possible for the president as a single human being to think about every aspect of the economy. And so the job of the ministers will also include, being able to advise the president. So,
Prof, let's just cut you a bit. We're seeing the visuals of Mr. President coming into the room, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So we're expecting that this will go on in the next few minutes. Since the President has entered the room, we're expecting, of course, the national anthem. Yes, that's
that is on now.
Yes.
You may be seated. His Excellency, President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, His Excellency, Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, distinguished Senator Kashim Shettima, GCON, His Excellency, the President of the Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio, CON, His Excellency, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, Chairman of the Governors Forum and other governors present, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, His Excellency Senator George Akume, honorable ministers, senior government officials, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Your Excellency, Mr. President, you spared no effort in campaigning across the length and breadth of our great nation, inspiring the renewed hope of our people and a better deal for all Nigerians and their future generations. You have consistently affirmed, both in public and in private discussions, that every minute Your Excellency spends in office will be dedicated to improving the quality of life of our people. You confided in them that the road ahead would not be easy at the outset, but that together, hand in hand, we would reach our destiny as the preeminent African power. Your bold decisions, taken swiftly to restructure our economy, and the urgent action taken on personnel matters in your first days in office have reinforced your reputation as a man whose word is his bond. Your Excellency, an exercise of powers conferred on you by Section 147, subsection 1, 2, and 3 of the Nigerian Constitution, you forwarded the names of highly competent and credible men and women to the Nigerian Senate for confirmation as ministers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to join hands with you in actualizing your renewed hope mandate. The Senate has confirmed 45 of your nominees as worthy of the task ahead of them, and with your allocation of ministerial portfolios, they are here before you this morning to take their oaths of office. The ministers designate will take their oaths in 9 batches of 5 persons each, and it will be done alphabetically, according to their states of origin, with one notable exception. Given his pivotal role in the proceedings, the Attorney General and Minister of Justice will lead the first batch to be sworn in as members of the Federal Executive Council. Permit me, Your Excellency, Mr. President, to call on the Minister-designate from Kwara State to stand now as his citation is read. Lateef Fagbemi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, is a life bencher of the body of benchers. Lateef Fagbemi is a prominent Nigerian lawyer, jurist, and senior advocate of Nigeria who has made significant contributions to the administration of law and justice in Nigeria. Born on the 16th of July, 1959, he attended the University of Jos, where he obtained his Bachelor of Laws degree in 1984, before being called to the bar in 1985. He later obtained a Master of Laws degree from the University of Ife in 1987. After completing his education, the senior advocate began his legal career as a pupil counsel under Chief Afe Babalola, SAN, and later practiced as solicitor and advocate under the name of Lateef Fagbemi & Co., which later converted to a partnership under the same name. In the year 1996, he was conferred with the rank of Senior Advocate of Nigeria and has also received various other awards and honors. The Learned Silk will serve as the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice. You may be seated. Minister-designate from Abia State, Honorable Barrister Nkeruka Onyejiocha, OON, was born on November 23rd, 1969, where she represented the Isikwato Umenyoche Federal Constituency of Abia State in the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th Assemblies. She was most recently the Deputy Chief Whip of the 9th Assembly. The former Transitional Local Government Chairman and Abia State Commissioner for Resource Management and Manpower Development holds a PhD in Political Science from the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. She's a lawyer with 2 master's degrees in Transport Management from Ladoke Akintola University in Oyo State and International Affairs and Diplomacy from Imo State University. This recipient of the National Honor of the Officer of the Order of the Niger, OON, will serve as the Minister of State for Labor and Employment. From Akwa Ibom State, Ministerial Designate Honorable Ekperepe Ekpo contested and won in 2007 the House of Representatives seat for Abak Etim Ekpo Ika Federal Constituency in the National Assembly. While in the Green Chambers, he was appointed Deputy Chairman, House Committee on Industry. He also served as the House Committee on the House Committees of Customs, National Security, and Intelligence, Power and Niger Delta Affairs, amongst other assignments. Honorable Ekperepe Ekpo, with an extensive background in law, will serve as the Minister of State, Gas, in the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources. Ministerial Designate from Anambra State, Barrister Uju Ken Ohanenye is an investor, philanthropist, and humanitarian who was born on the 23rd of December 1978. She hails from Oka South, local government area of Anambra State. Her academic journey took her to the Nnamdi Azikiwe University in Oka, where she earned a Bachelor of Law degree. The barrister is known for establishing the Kenuj Shower of Love Foundation, which is nationally renowned for its humanitarian activities. She is also the chairperson of Kenuj Investment Limited, a company with diverse commercial interests, including real estate. Barrister Ohanenye will serve as the Minister of Women Affairs. Minister Designate from Adamawa State, Professor Tahir Maman, Senior Advocate of Nigeria and Officer of the Order of the Niger, OON, was born on the 7th of July, 1954 in Michika, Adamawa State. He obtained his bachelor's degree in law from Ahmadu Bello University in Zaria and followed it up with master's and doctorate degrees from the University of Warwick in the United Kingdom. In 2005, Professor Maman was appointed Deputy Director General of the Kano campus of the Nigerian Law School and later became the school's Director General. He was in the employment of the University of Maiduguri in different capacities between 1985 and 2001. The Senior Advocate of Nigeria is also a recipient of the National Honor OON. As a former Vice Chancellor of Bayes University in Abuja and a former member representing the Northeast on the board of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, he will serve the nation as the Minister of Education. At this juncture, the first batch of 5 ministers designate will step forward to take their oaths of office, after which each minister designate will shake the hand of His Excellency Mr. President in a photograph.
I, Latif, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, do solemnly swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and that I will preserve, protect, and defend the laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, so help me God. I, do solemnly swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Federal Republic of Nigeria, that as a minister I will discharge my duties to the best of my ability, faithfully and in accordance with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the law, and always in the interest of the sovereignty, integrity, solidarity, well-being and prosperity of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, that I will exercise the authority vested in me as a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, so as not to impede or prejudice the authority lawfully vested in the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and so as not to endanger the continuance of the federal government of Nigeria, that I will not allow my personal interest to influence my official conduct or my official decisions, that I will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, that in all circumstances I will do right to all manner of people according to law, that I will not directly or indirectly communicate or reveal to any person any matter which shall be brought under my consideration or shall become known to me as Minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, except as may be required for the due discharge of my duties as Minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So help me God.
Who's taking the picture? At the camera.
We're seeing the signing ceremony there going on and the presidential handshake. Of course, 5 ministers have been sworn in right now in Nkiru Onyejocha, and I think also the Attorney General of the Federation, that should be him there. Yes, so 5 people were called, so we can see that we have 5 ministers right now.
Nkiru Onyejocha is Minister of Labor and Employment, substantive now sworn in, and that tells us indeed a lot on her hands. Let's quickly bring in our panelists to weigh in on this first set of 5 ministers, sets of 5, 9 times we are going to see this swearing, of course, 45 of them. First, let's get Dr. Pedi Obani, expectations for the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice as he's signing the dotted lines.
I would say huge expectations. I mean, we're not immune. Well, we've all had the recent controversies around all eyes on the judiciary and all of that. I think it's an enormous task, but it needs to be done. Rebuilding confidence in the judiciary. Just being sure that when people look at the judiciary, the respect that it should command is there, the trust that it should command is there, and people see the judiciary again as that hope, you know, the last hope of the common man or woman, you know, child, whatever you want to call it. But I think that task of rebuilding confidence in that institution is critical. The second thing I think would be around resourcing, because there are issues around resourcing of the judiciary, access to the courts for people, especially people in vulnerable situations. The minister would have to work really hard to ensure.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
That will take us.
Yeah, you stopped at the right time there, Pedi, because let's take you back to the Asira Presidential Villa Abuja.
Shake the hands of His Excellency, Mr. President. Please be mindful of looking toward the cameras along with Mr. President. The second batch of 5 ministers designate to soon take their oaths of office begin with the minister designate from Bauchi State. Dr. Mohammed Ali Pate, a distinguished figure in the global public health arena, was born on the 6th of September 1968 in Misau local government area of Bauchi State. He studied medicine and surgery at Ahmadu Bello University in Zaria. He worked at the institution's teaching hospital from 1990 to 1991 before moving to the British Medical Research Council laboratories in the Gambia. He would further advance his medical training in the United States, where he completed a residency in internal medicine in 1998, as well as a fellowship in infectious diseases at the University of Rochester in New York. He holds an American board certification in both internal medicine and infectious diseases. Additionally, Dr. Pate possesses an MBA health sector concentration from Duke University in the US, as well as a master's degree in health system management from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine in the United Kingdom. He has made significant contributions to global health and disease eradication efforts around the world. He will serve as the Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare. Also from Bauchi State, Minister-designate, His Excellency Ambassador Yusuf Maitama Tuga was born